everyone, my name's Charlotte and I am Editor-in-Chief of DevOps Launchpad, which is a free training platform developed by GearSet to upskill the Salesforce community in all things DevOps. So let's talk about DevOps. No, I'm on the wrong screen. Let's try again. There we go. Let's talk about DevOps. I think most of you will be familiar. It's becoming much more widely understood in the ecosystem as it is, but just a quick recap. DevOps is a set of best practices for building, testing, and releasing software, which results in faster, more secure, and more agile development cycles. It's based on a method of development. It's not a new way to develop a tool, but it's a way of developing where releases are small and incremental rather than a big release at the end of a development cycle. Now, as I said, it's not a new way to develop, but it's being talked about much more and more in the Salesforce ecosystem, especially with the general availability of DevOps Center at the tail end of last year. So for most teams, it's now not a question of whether to use DevOps, but how they actually go about using DevOps. And we're really passionate about DevOps, obviously. I work for GearSet, but we really believe that the DevOps culture is a really important part of DevOps as a whole, and it's not just about the technology. So yeah, why do we care about culture? It's a common misconception that technology alone is enough to result in a successful DevOps workflow. That's just not the case. It's not the case of just adopting a new tool, a new process, or a new platform. It's all about the DevOps culture that embeds into everything that goes along with it. So it's something that you should be thinking about throughout your implementation, not just an afterthought at the end. It really should be embedded. And teams that have a DevOps culture are much more successful with DevOps as a whole. I believe it should be a key part of your DevOps strategy, and I think that there are three key traits of a DevOps culture that you can work to develop, and I'm going to give you a few tips and ideas of how you can implement these in your organization. So the first of these is buy-in. And this is where all team members understand and appreciate the value of DevOps. We conducted a State of Salesforce DevOps survey last year, and in that survey, over a third of individuals said that people-related factors were one of the biggest challenges that they had in their implementation of DevOps. And that they were suffering with limited buy-in, and that whether that's from team members or stakeholders. So it's a really key part of a DevOps implementation. So how can you achieve buy-in? First, top tip is to share information. There's nothing that can incite bad feeling more than people feeling blindsided by changes being made where they haven't been informed and they haven't been told why the changes have been made. So it's really important to make sure that you're keeping all the team informed, no matter what their role, no matter how loosely they are connected to the process, they need to be kept informed. Secondly, it's no good keeping people informed if you're not giving them a voice. You obviously can't take everyone's opinions on board, but you can give fair consideration and instill a culture where people feel able and willing to give you feedback and just show that you're considering that and taking people's ideas. And thirdly is to measure your progress. So metrics are really difficult to argue with, and if you're not measuring it, then it's very difficult to manage. But it's a really good way to get people that might be skeptical of change to show the improvements that are being made. So there's lots of different metrics that you can use, and obviously when you're looking at DevOps, you can look at the DORA metrics as well. There's lots of good resources on those. But the second side of this is obviously if you're using these metrics to measure your changes and you're not seeing improvements, then you know that there's something that's not going right. So it's a bit of a win-win situation. You can persuade the non-believers and also make sure that you're doing the right thing. So next up is collaboration. This is something that's obviously really at the heart of DevOps. In that same survey, there was a third of individuals that said that problems with collaboration were causing issues with their Salesforce release process. So this is where all teammates communicate clearly and share responsibility for the release process. So how can you instill a sense of collaboration within your team? First up is aligning objectives. So obviously, different teams will have different objectives, but if you can align them underneath some common organizational goals, then that's a really powerful way to get people pulling in the same direction rather than just focusing on their own specific areas. So try and come up with some objectives that are agreed on throughout the organization that everyone can work towards. Secondly is increasing visibility. So that's visibility of roles and responsibilities, so people know what roles people play within the organization, which areas they're responsible for, who to go to if you've got a particular issue or if you're working in a certain area. And obviously in today's hybrid working model where people are in different time zones, some people are in the office, some people aren't, it's really important to have that. A second part of the visibility is documentation. So documenting your processes, documenting changes that are being made. People need to know what work is being done where in order to collaborate effectively, because otherwise if lots of changes are going on undocumented, no one knows what's going on and the process will just break down and people will just go back to the old way of doing things. And thirdly, don't play the blame game. So collaboration can only work when there's no sense of blaming people. If something goes wrong, things will go wrong, they always do. Rather than focusing on who made the mistake or who made the error, it's working together and using those to align people and to find the solutions rather than focus on what the problem was caused by, and working together to find those. So using those to unite rather than to divide. And finally, a culture of continuous improvement, which is a commitment to continued learning, upskilling and training. So that's in all areas of the platform that you're using, as well as specific skills that will help people do their jobs. There's a real focus on training this year. That survey showed that I think it was 2/3 of organizations are hoping to overcome challenges this year with training. We'd obviously like it to be close to 100%, but 2/3 isn't bad. And I think it was around 43% with prioritizing training. So it shows that training is becoming a really important thing, especially with DevOps, which is a platform that, or a methodology that's continually evolving. So enabling continuous improvement within your organization, reviewing progress regularly. We spoke about metrics already, but making sure you're checking in with your team regularly, making sure that they have all the tools that they need to support each other to do their jobs well. And it also allows you to identify any issues early, which is obviously aligned with the shifting left methodology that we advocate for in DevOps. Secondly is removing the fear of failure. So similarly to not blaming anybody for mistakes, if there's no failure, then there's no innovation. You're obviously not encouraging people to take risks that are untenable, but pushing the boundaries a little bit and not being afraid for something not to work out exactly as you expected. And thirdly, it won't surprise you that I'm going to stand here and say this, but use the resources that are available. Salesforce is an amazing community that has lots of free resources. Obviously, you've got Trailhead, you've got things like DevOps Launchpad, you've got events like this, online events. There's so many different opportunities that you can connect with the community and upskill as a team. DevOps is a team sport and you all need to be speaking the same language, so finding those opportunities and making sure that it's something that all of the management, it needs to feed through from management right through to the team level in order to be successful. And a final word from me is don't expect a DevOps culture to be instilled overnight. It's not something that you can just tick off your list and be done with it. It's something that you have to really instill throughout the organization, keep revisiting, keep coming back to throughout all of your processes and new team members coming on board. You can't just expect to tick it off a list and be done with it. So if you really invest the time and put in the effort, then you'll reap the rewards of a successful DevOps process. So that was a very quick run through. I have actually got a couple of minutes for questions if anyone has any. If they don't, then I will leave it there.
What we've seen is that there's market overload. People are buying really expensive technology, but they're really not making the most out of it.
We want to show people can strategize now to plan for the future and plan to kickstart those projects.